Are you curious about long-arm quilting? I'm here to answer your questions in today's discussion about the different kinds of thread. I'm Andy, and this is True Blue Quilts, a place to enjoy, experiment, and excel as you quilt.
So once you have the 3 layers and everything's delivered to the long arm quilter, you need to think about the pattern that you are working with. I've mentioned Pantograph, an edge-to-edge design that the quilter can use. And you see this a lot with the computerized machines that have become so popular. You can program a design in and the computer can repeat that and stretch it over the whole quilt. And then you can just let the machine run in the background. I would love to have a computerized machine. It just sounds fabulous to start the machine stitching on the long arm, and then I can be over here piecing the next quilt. And just that's a dream, but that's a whole nother extra cost. If you're curious, I have no problem sharing. This Gamble machine was about $15,000 when I purchased it new, and computerized machines are usually at least twice that. So yes, I've got a brand new car sitting here in my spare room. So it is a big investment, so you can understand why people are charging the amount that they do, because yes, they're trying to recoup their costs. There is a skill set that we've developed over the years that we've been quilting, and just, you know, that soapbox. So we need to pay artists and handmade creative people the amount that their talent is worth. Mentioning pantographs, that all over design. If that's going to work, just remember that's going to be one color of thread that's going through your whole quilt. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad, especially if you have high contrast stuff like my sample white and blue squares. I could use a white thread on this and it would look fabulous. Especially because there's a lot of white in the blue area. But if this were a solid blue, that white thread would fade into the background on the white square, but it would be very noticeable on the blue square. And having that contrast of colors might be a little too jarring. So you can find other threads that blend a little better between the two colors of your quilt, or the several colors on your quilt. When you get into custom stitching, you can match the colors much easier. I might have a design that I do in white thread, only in the white blocks, and a different design that I do in blue thread, only in the blue squares. And then all the stitching kind of fades to the background because it is matched to the quilt squares, and you get an overall texture without the stitching, without the thread color being as noticeable. That's also one of the reasons why I have stopped using variegated thread, except in very unique circumstances. Everybody loves the variegated thread. Oh, my quilt is pink and green and purple. Let me use a pink, green, and purple thread. Well, a lot of times the color sections on that variegated thread are so small that the pink thread shows up on the purple fabric at really odd times, and it becomes a distraction. You can't see the whole design that you're making with the thread. You only see tiny little bits of pops of color, and it doesn't come out the way you think it will. So I have changed my quilting habits, and I tend to use solid colors more often. Of course, if you're changing colors a lot, that may drive the price up. So again, you have to have that conversation with your long arm quilter about what's included. They may have a price point where you can use 3 to 4 colors at one cost, and then if you go up to 6 or 7 different colors, it would be a higher cost. I like permacore. That has been hard to find in my local area, so I have switched to Omni, which is from Superior brand quilting. So I tend to use the same thread, top and bottom. So my quilting shows on the bottom of my quilt because whatever color I was matching on the top, I don't care what's on the bottom. It's going to match to the top. And the reason I do that is because when the machine makes a stitch, obviously it pokes a hole in the quilt. So sometimes, even with perfect tension, you're going to be able to see through that hole, and the bottom thread is going to show on the top and the top thread is going to show on the bottom. So I just have those match, and that way the thread line looks the same. If you tried it with different, if let's say the top of your quilt was white and you had a blue, just because that's on my mind and I'm a true blue quilter, so you have a white fabric on the top and a blue fabric on the bottom. So you decide to use white thread on the top and blue thread on the bottom. You're going to have tiny little pokies, I call them, tiny little dots of the opposite color. So you'll have your stitch line, white thread, with tiny little dots of blue on the top. And in the reverse on the back, you would have your blue thread with tiny little dots of white. And that just may not be a good look if you were trying to match the thread to the top color and a different color on the bottom. It can be done. I've done it occasionally. I just don't ever want to risk that look, because even with perfect tension, you're going to be able to occasionally see through that hole that the needle is making in the quilt. So I hope I have given you a good overview of all the different decisions that go into working with a long arm quilter.
For more videos on long arm quilting, click on the video shown below. I dive deep into a comparison between free motion and pantograph quilting. And hit that subscribe button. I'm here every week with more tutorials. See you in the next video.